Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a passionate golfer, a well known and respected golf professional, and a veteran from USA, Mr. Jay Delsing. Jay, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to be with you. Congratulations on your success. I'm really looking forward to being with you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Jay is a PGA Tour veteran. He's a nationally syndicated host of Golf with Jay Delsing. He's an author of You Wouldn't Believe Me If I Told You, an unforgettable memoir of golf, grit, and a blue collar kid on the PGA Tour. So, Jay, my first question to you: you grew up on the public courses of St. Louis. What first drew you to the game, and when did you realize golf would become your life?
Oh gosh. Well, when you're the fourth of five children, you're kind of just thrown in the back of the car and, you go where you go. It wasn't like my parents ever said, "What do you want to do?" It was like, "Get in the car." So we went to this, not, it's there was a swimming pool associated with this golf course. And I had three older sisters that used to lifeguard down there. So in the summer, I was shuttled into that car and didn't really have much of a choice. I'm stuck at the swimming pool. So I noticed this golf course over there. So I used to jump the fence, and I started off just looking for golf balls and things like that. Then eventually I started bringing my mom's clubs with me and started playing. And the game bit me. It was one of those things where my dad was a professional baseball player back in the 1950s and in the late 40s, and it wasn't a big thing back then. It was just an occupation,
Yeah.
and I always wanted to follow in his steps and be some sort of professional athlete. And none of back in when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of organized sports. I mean, we had church league, so we'd play one practice and that just wasn't enough for me. So golf was able to fill that Jones that I
Mhm.
had as a young boy, where I could just, when I walked off the 18th green, I turned around and went right to the first tee again.
Wow.
And I didn't know I should be tired. I didn't know it was weird as a kid to be by myself all the time. And um, when you grew up with not a lot of money, one of the biggest things, I was told I was always going to go to university. I was always going to go to college, but I didn't have any idea how I was going to get paid for. And
Mhm.
so my goal as a young man was, I'm going to college. I'm going to figure out a way to get it paid for. And
Mhm.
that's where
How
sports came in.
amazing.
And then golf just filled that
How
void for me.
amazing. How amazing. What an amazing story. And congratulations for everything you've achieved.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Jay, who were the mentors or role models who helped you navigate the early years of competitive golf?
Well, having a father that played Major League Baseball really, really helped. But I've got to give you just a little background on my
Mhm.
dad. He grew up on a dairy farm, and he wasn't an educated guy. He left home when he was 16 to play baseball. And so he finished high school at night. So but it's interesting because our world is confused sometimes about intelligence, because we feel like if you pick up a book and you can recite what's in that book, that you're really, really smart. And that's not true. That's true. But there's other forms of intelligence, and there's
Mm.
being able to read the room. There's being able to impart wisdom on people that that are based on life lessons and people that you've met and experiences that you've had. And so my dad was wise, but he wouldn't have been looked at in today's world as a smart person. And so he really helped me a lot keep my head on straight and
Mm.
say, look, you're thinking too much. Just see the ball and
Mm.
hit the ball and
Correct.
make it go as your target. And that simplicity, and especially in today's world where we have these things and we
Correct.
have so much contact and such ability to communicate, yet we're angry and we don't, that was a relief for me. I'm an older guy. I'm 65 years old, but I'm so fortunate that I grew up at the time that I did, because, you know, we didn't have a watch on our wrist. We didn't have cell phones, but we were home every night at 5 o'clock for dinner. we had a neighborhood watch that actually looked out for one another, and you knew you didn't misbehave
Correct.
because that person would call your parents like that
Mm.
and you'd be in trouble
Yeah.
and your parents were over a mile away. It was
Mm.
it was just a different world. And I don't want to sound like an old curmudgeon, but it was for me, I really
How
enjoyed it. So
interesting.
my
How
my
interesting.
dad my dad was one of the bigger influences in my life.
Amazing. Amazing. I loved his advice to you. You see the ball and hit the ball. Fantastic. I wish I
Well,
could do
there's
that
too many.
at 69, you know. There are so many things that go through my head every time I pick up my club and hit the ball. But
Well, he said to me, "This is the most dangerous 6 inches on
correct.
the golf course," and he said, don't think you hurt the team." And so I took that to heart.
Absolutely. So, Jay, take us back to 1984, the year you earned your PGA Tour card. And what was going through your mind as you stepped into that world?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. It was terrifying. It was
Mm,
exciting. It was So back then, the qualifying school tournament was 6 rounds of golf. And, there's not a 6 round tournament that you ever play.
mm,
So when you finished round four, you still had 2 more rounds to go. So it
yeah.
was really and truly a marathon, and it was a lot of pressure because back in the day, they didn't have a really well developed feeder tour like we have the Corn Ferry tours and we have the DP World tours and things like that.
Mm,
There
mm,
wasn't any of those options. So it was either kind of the PGA Tour or nothing. And I was really fortunate. I think I finished 17th my first time through that qualifying school. They only took 50 people. And it was for the next 19 years, I kept my PGA Tour card. So I really and truly, as I look back on it, learned to play on
mm,
the PGA Tour. But
mm.
when you walk out on the practice tee, and I'll never forget this, my first session on the practice tee, I was hitting balls between Tom Watson, who was a boyhood hero and idol of mine, and Curtis Strange, who was a leading money winner on the tour the very next year. And they're not over there shaking your hand and welcoming you and saying, "Hey, I hope you have a great career. I hope that
Mm,
it was very cutthroat, and they looked at us like we were there to take their jobs, and so
mm,
it wasn't the friendliest place. I can tell you that."
mm, mm. I can imagine. But you played professional golf for over 25 years. What were moments on tour that defined you the most, either in triumph or in challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what? It was definitely in the challenge. It was definitely in the low parts. I learned what kind of man I was. I learned how often, and this is what is so cool about golf that gives you these life lessons.
Correct.
You learn so much more about yourself when you need to pick yourself off the mat than you do when you win a golf tournament. There's not a better feeling in the world when you've won a tournament and you realize that, man, I put all this out on the line and I was able to beat the field and it was a tremendous feeling. But when you're down low and a lot, you can tell how you treat people that don't matter to you when
Mm,
you're really, really low. Like the folks that would take care of the locker rooms for us every single week. I'll never forget a story. I'd take I had 3 children at the time. I have 4 now, but they're all daughters. And I'd take them in the locker room with me. And the guys were so kind to them and they'd bring them some water or bring them a candy bar or something like that. And my daughter said to me, "Dad, are these guys doing this for you every single week?
wow.
This is the greatest thing I've ever seen," my daughter said. And I
Mm,
said, it was a great perspective because I was like, I'm I might have been missing a cut in cleaning out my locker, and these gentlemen were still kind to me. They were cleaning the dirt off of my shoes.
mm,
I mean, come on. I mean, if that doesn't help you with perspective, I mean,
correct.
nothing does.
Correct.
And they were volunteering.
Mm,
So it wasn't like they were getting paid a lot of money. We would tip them. But so those were the lessons I think that I realized my daughters didn't give a damn whether I shot 65 or 85. They loved me, they wanted me home, and they
correct.
wanted to hang out with me. And having children was one of the things that helped me more than anything. And I've
Mm,
had plenty of friends that started families and their careers went right down the tank because they saw it as more pressure, more
Mm,
mouths to feed. So it's really up in here and
correct.
how you perceive it, which is the challenge in life in general, right? I mean, where's our place in the world? How do we
Mm,
see each other? How do we fit? How do we make a difference? How do we make the world a better place? And I have to say to you, I hope that our listeners realize that the PGA Tour in the United States of America, we donate more money to charity than NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and the National Hockey League
mm,
combined.
wow.
We will donate hundreds of millions of dollars to charity through golf this year, and I'm really, really proud of that.
Incredible. I didn't know that, but thank you for sharing this. Such an important data point you've shared with me on how much golf contributes to charity. Jay, you also talk about integrity and values in golf. Why do you believe calling a penalty on yourself reflects something deeper about how we live and lead?
Oh man, I love your questions. Well, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to put your head on your pillow at night.
Mm,
And if you don't have peace, if there's these, and this is at least how it is for me. I was a young man on the PGA Tour, and I was right in between this situation that I didn't really know what I was doing, and I probably today would call a penalty on myself, but I didn't. And I want to tell you, I went out, I didn't sleep worth a darn that night. I went out the next day, had a horrible game. And because it chewed on my brain. I kept wondering, boy, I don't want to do this if I'm not playing by the rules. If I'm not,
mm,
I felt like everybody else was, and I needed to uphold that level, that
right.
standard. And we don't have referees, we don't have replays, we don't have it's you and I walking and trying to protect the field by watching each other. By
Mm,
you can break a rule in golf and not do it intentionally.
yeah.
It's so not, but there's a difference, and all of us, we players know. And so there's a standard that we felt like Arnold Palmer, Mr. Jack Nicklaus, those great bastions of the game that came before us, they set a standard that we need
Correct.
to uphold. And that's special to me. It wasn't when I was younger, to be honest, but as I've aged, it's really super important, and it's a
Mm,
fun story to be able to tell young golfers that no, you call a penalty on yourself because it's the right thing to do, and
mm.
this is the way we play this game. It's just as important as having a golf ball or a tee in your pocket is the way that you play the game. It's important.
Very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about your show, Golf with Jay Delsing. It is now nationally syndicated. What do you think resonates the most with your listeners?
Well, I don't know if you can tell this, but I'm a storyteller.
Yeah,
I am not trying to help people necessarily hit their 5 irons better by tuning into me.
correct.
I want the people side of golf to be spread out for everywhere. Golf has absolutely made my life. It has. I have 4 daughters. They got great education. They're off to a great start because golf supplied the financial means for my family. And along the way, we got to travel. We got to meet wonderful people. We got to see
Mm,
gorgeous places. The way that I grew up, it could have gone a lot of ways. Golf
absolutely.
is what made it for me. And I want people to know that. I want people to maybe share that. I want them to try to play. And so I've been fortunate to have the greats of the game on my show, Jack Nicklaus. Barbara Nicklaus was a very interesting interview. And
Mm,
now I get to talk to these people. I got to play golf with them once upon a time, but I get to ask them questions about themselves,
mm,
their lives, why golf, how golf. And when you want to talk about an awesome experience, when you get to have Jack Nicklaus on the show or Wayne Gretzky or some of these greats in there, and you do your prep
mm,
to to be prepared for the questions. It is amazing to look at what they've accomplished. I mean,
mm,
Jack and Barbara Nicklaus alone since 2004 have raised over $300 million with this one initiative called Play Yellow,
Mm.
where Jack actually wore a yellow shirt on Sunday because a young man that he met in Ohio had cancer
Yeah.
and his favorite color was yellow. And so Jack, in order to honor him, wore this yellow shirt. So you can see the shirt that I
Yeah.
have on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
86
Yeah.
Masters.
Mm.
Jack had on a yellow shirt to win his sixth Masters. So there's fun stories like that intertwined
Mm.
with this these champions. And I love to dive into how they think and what makes them tick. And the amazing thing is most of them keep things so simple.
Mm.
They work hard. They have a tremendous work ethic. They're extremely highly competitive, but they keep things simple. And that is, if there was a message for anybody that's trying to play golf, just keep it
I
simple.
know, I know. I've read a lot about Jack Nicklaus, and I've never met him, but I play on a Jack Nicklaus course in India. So
Isn't that amazing? And he's got over
absolutely,
400 golf courses
I
around this
know,
world.
absolutely. But Jay, moving on, and thank you for sharing some of these stories that you've had with some of the legends. But I want to ask you another question. Were there any encounters with legends of the game that left a lasting impression on you, either through kindness, mentorship, or just sheer awe?
Oh my gosh, it absolutely did. I have a story in my book where I'm playing in Mr. Arnold Palmer's tournament in Bay Hill. It's called the Bay Hill Invitational, and he invited me. And so it's an invitation. So the only way you can get in the tournament is to be invited by Arnold Palmer. And I was thrilled to have this invitation. I had finished my second round of golf. I was having a nice tournament. I was somewhere on the leaderboard. I have my hat on and I'm sitting in this beautiful players' dining room. It's got wonderful food and just a lovely environment for you to come
Mm,
in after your round. And I'm sitting there by myself and I have this big paw come on my shoulder and I look over and it's Arnold Palmer. So I
wow.
stand up. Again, I have my hat on. I'm just eating a nice bit of food because my morning rituals look like I get to the course about an hour and a half ahead of time, do a light workout, hit some golf balls, a light bit of food, and then off I go. And then afterwards, there's another 3 or 4 hours, but food is a big thing. So I
Mm,
was getting some nutrition. And Mr. Palmer said, I said, Mr. Palmer, thank you for this food. Thank you for inviting me. This tournament is wonderful. I just thank you so much. And he pulled me really close, like the nuns used to do when I was in trouble at school. And
mm,
he said to me, let me ask you a question. Do you wear that hat at home
mhm.
when you're in your own home? And I said, yes, sir, Mr. Palmer, I sure do. And he said, damn it, take that hat off. Show me some respect. A man does not wear his hat in another man's home, and this is my home.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I turned bright red, took my hat off, threw it on the ground, and I said, I'm really sorry. I had no idea. I was
Mm,
probably in my late 20s at the time, but
mm.
we wore our caps everywhere.
Yeah.
And to this day, and he goes, enjoy your breakfast, and I hope you win this damn tournament. Thank you for being here. And he walked away, and I
Wow.
was
Oh, what an
mortified.
amazing lesson.
Oh, I was mortified. And to this day, when I walk into a golf shop, when I walk into a clubhouse, when I walk and I'm wearing a cap, I take it off. And
Yeah.
Mr. the great Arnold Palmer is not with us anymore, but oh my gosh, that
What an
I
amazing
will
story.
never forget that.
What an amazing story. Let's now change gears, Jay. How has your perspective on the game changed now that you're observing it from behind a microphone instead of inside the ropes?
Well, that's a great question because I really believe and I didn't know this, but if I would have done this, so I worked for Fox Television for 5 years and I got to watch and look at the great players playing in a much different lens than I had when I was competing because I had my head down and was immersed in my own game,
Mm,
and it would have made me such a better player because when these great players were not having their best day, it looked just like mine.
mm,
Their bad shots went off to the left and off to the right. Their putts lipped out, and
mm,
and I didn't. I felt like I was much further away from them than I actually was. It
mm,
was it was so it was it was too late in my career to really make a difference for my playing career, but from my perspective, it just gave me such a respect for the game and how hard it is, how difficult it is, and that you really have to have this ability to brush off the things that don't go your way and remember the good things on the long term basis. The short term, brush off that negative because those guys did a better job than I
Mm,
did.
mm,
So if everybody's trained, and this is in life as well, I was just talking to my youngest daughter about this. Everybody's train comes off the track. It's not if, it's when. The
mm,
more successful people get back on quicker, they get back on point and they're not stuck. And sometimes I would get stuck either lost in mechanics or just the grind of the tour, the travel. But the better players did not stay there long. And that's a life lesson. Whenever your train is
mm,
the best, realize it as it's starting to come off the track. They
mm.
get back on instead of the full blown, oh my gosh, I'm in the ditch and I gotta the great champions right the ship much quicker.
Absolutely. Great response. I want to move to your book now. And you wouldn't believe me if I told you an unforgettable memoir of a golf grit and a blue collar kid on the PGA Tour. Your memoir has been described as candid, funny, and deeply heartfelt. What inspired you to finally write your memoir?
Well, I had a friend that kept bugging me, and I kept saying, "No one's going to want to read this. No one's
Hmm.
going to want to read this." And another friend of mine was sitting with us one day at lunch, and he said, your daughters would want to read that."
Hmm.
And it's absolutely as simple as that. When I
Yeah,
thought, I tried to be a good dad. I was there as much as I could, but I missed a lot of things.
correct.
And I have a great relationship with all four of my daughters to this day, but I thought, they might get a kick out of some of the, running into Justin Timberlake when, they all were fawning over him and I didn't even know who he was because I was
Mm,
much older than
mm,
he was and things like that. It was interesting to write a book. I didn't ever think I would do that. To get Jack Nicklaus to write the foreword was amazing. And someone
mm.
said to me, "How did you get Jack Nicklaus to write the foreword of your book?" And I said, "I asked him." And it was that simple. I mean, in terms of, keeping it simple, he said, "Oh my gosh, I'd be on. When do you want it?" I mean, that's how the
Amazing,
conversation went. So
amazing.
it
Mm,
was, and that speaks as well to the community that we golfers have.
mm.
We're out there trying to beat each other's brains in on the golf course, but then there's a camaraderie
Correct.
that, as I age, I just appreciate much more than I did when I was young and
Absolutely,
trying to, knock
absolutely.
everybody's head off. It's really a nice thing.
Fascinating, fascinating. I have time for two more questions for you. Which story in your book best captures the idea that golf is more than a game, it's a way of living?
Oh boy, that's another you've got some such insightful questions. Thank you for those. I think it the integrity piece is what I'll go back to because you're out there competing and there's lots of money on, especially nowadays, way more than what we played
Yeah.
for. And it's easy to get tunnel vision and think I'm competing, and it's easy to lose sight of what's really important. And at the end of the day, it's been said millions of times by some of the great minds in the world where it's more about how you let people feel than and how you touch them than some of your accomplishments. And there's a story in the book where a gentleman that I was competing with had accused me of cheating twice in 2 days. His name
Wow.
is Scott Hope, and we had a really tense situation, but there was something inside of me more guttural than in my brain that was told me to defend myself. Like
Mm,
this is really important, and how your constituents look at you is really important. And it wasn't like I had a lot of time to contemplate that. It was more of a reactionary thing, heat of the moment. And I look back at it and I'm so delighted that I had that response because it was correct.
mm,
I didn't do anything wrong, as it turns out. And I'm actually proud of the fact that I stood up for myself. It's
Yeah.
intimidating in some of these, and you're depending on where you are in your personal development, you're not
Mm,
sure how you might handle some of those situations. So that instance with Scott Hoke at the Canadian Open, where
mm.
we almost got into a fist fight, it was that's probably it.
Wow. Wow. What a story.
Yeah,
What
I'm
a
a
story.
mild-mannered guy, but I was pushed to the edge on that
And I
one.
can imagine, I'm glad you fought back because that's what all of us as golfers live for on the golf course. Nobody can question our ethics. Thank you.
Right. You don't want to say you cheated. That's the worst
Absolutely.
thing I think you could say about a fellow.
Absolutely. And my last question for you, Jay. If you had to pick one lesson from golf that every leader should know, what would it be and why?
Well, take first of all, take responsibility in a
Mm,
world where we constantly have our leaders blaming others and things like that. Take responsibility for your actions and don't be afraid to make mistakes
mm,
because mistakes are inevitable. They happen to everyone. It's not, we mentioned earlier, it's not about if, it's when you make mistakes. How many how many times do you need to pick yourself off the mat in life?
correct.
As many as it takes. There's not a number. What are you going to say? 3 or 14 or it doesn't matter. As
Yeah.
many as it takes because find something in your life that matters to you. It gets you
Mm,
out of bed. It gives you drive. It gives you passion. That is an infectious quality. If you want to be a leader, have the passion for, I don't care if it's gardening or if it's rocket scientist or if it's golf, have that passion for something that gets you out of bed and it makes you do it. Whatever that it is, you go the extra mile in the gym, you go the extra mile to being kind to someone because you're part of the community that way, whatever it is. And lastly, I would say this: I've got too many of our young people in our country that aim for the middle. That the
mm,
parents don't want them to be hurt. And I'm not talking about serious injury. I'm talking about their feelings hurt or them not getting what they want. Part of life is failing and learning. And
correct.
Benjamin Franklin said, it's not failure. I just am not going to do that again to try to get me to where I want to go. And aim for the top because you never know what can happen. I wanted to be the number one player in the world, and I never got there. I got inside the top 50. And as I look back at that, I'm proud of that. When I was going through it, I thought it was awful, and I
Yeah.
needed to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. But
Mm,
the experiences you meet along the way, the challenges you learn to overcome, the triumphs that you get, and the people that have watched you and have could possibly be inspired by you.
mm,
That's what it's about. That's what it's
absolutely.
truly about.
Absolutely. Wow. And on that note, Jay, I just want to say what an amazing conversation this has been with you. I am personally very passionate about golf myself. As I was telling you, play 3, 4 times a week. Never been a professional because there were so many other things to do. But you told me so many interesting things that resonated with me, especially when it comes to values, integrity, and holding your own in a game of golf. I just loved what you told me, what your dad said, see the ball, hit the ball, because every shot that we take as amateurs, there are 100 things that go through your head. And if you only can remember, I'm going to remember that thing tomorrow morning when I go and play. But thank you for sharing such amazing stories from your journey. I think there are so many lessons that my viewers and listeners will take away from our conversation. Thank you again
Oh my
and good luck.
Ash, thank you. And Sahith Theegala is one of my favorites. He is an Indian American golfer. Watch him on the PGA Tour. He plays with that fire and passion that I was talking about. Congratulations. Your pod is amazing, and
Thank
I'm
you.
honored to be with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.